to another episode of Federico Talks Watches. Today was kind of an off-the-cuff episode. I got a phone call earlier this morning from a viewer and actually a good friend of mine that wanted my take on Rolex GMT Masters. Essentially, he said, you know, Federico, I have enough money for a Batman, but I kind of love the Pepsi. And you've owned the Pepsi, and I've owned two. You know, he wanted my take. And I said, you know what, Annie? I'm not going to answer you on the phone. I'm going to make a quick video about it. That way, a few other people may benefit from this content as well. So actually, I didn't even give him an answer. Probably still sitting on a seat of his pants trying to figure out what my opinion is on the whole thing. But of course, before we get started, customary wristwatch check. Today, I'm wearing my beloved Omega Speedmaster Apollo 14 limited edition for the Mission series. Actually, the crystal's all scuffed up. I gotta get a tube of Polywatch and buff it out. But more importantly, Rolex GMT Masters. You may or may not know this, guys, but I actually prefer the GMT Master over the Submariner. I love the GMT function. I find it extremely usable. I love the new polished center links on the new bracelet, and the Pepsi bezel is probably my favorite Rolex of all time. So as you can see, I've definitely got an affinity for Rolex GMT Masters. So today I was thinking I'd kind of give you the four key differences, at least in my mind, because there's certainly more than four, but in my mind, the four key differences between the modern ceramic GMT Masters and the older version, but not necessarily that old, like a 16710, pre-ceramic GMT Master. So the four key differences. Now, the first one is definitely the super case. They're both 40 millimeters, but the new GMT Masters have what is called the super case, which is also, in the Submariner line. It wears significantly heftier. The lugs are more squared off and larger. So even though they're technically both 40 millimeters, the Supercase modern GMT Master wears a little larger, and I personally do prefer the classical proportions of the older case. Now, of course, the second difference, and I think the main difference, in my mind at least, is the bezel. The new one is ceramic, and it's very scratch resistant. It most likely won't fade. I mean, it won't fade, but we can't say it with 100% certainty because it hasn't been out quite that long, but it's really made to look pristine throughout the entire life of the watch, and a lot of guys are gonna love that. Now, the older bezels were made out of aluminum, and those, they get scuffed up a little bit, the colors fade over time, and while it might sound a little crazy for me to say I prefer something that'll get damaged, I actually love the little, patina and scratches that those old aluminum bezels can get. That tells the story of the watch. And even though I never owned my two Pepsi bezels long enough for them to fade, it's still kind of an horological dream of mine to own one of those long enough for me to reminisce, when I'm an older man and be like, I remember when that blue and red was crispy and new. And actually, guys, one of the things I heard, and I'm not 100% sure it's true, is the reason it took Rolex so long to make a new Pepsi bezel GMT on the white gold case is because it was very hard to dye the bezel anything other than black. I mean, yes, eventually they did get red, they did get blue, but it was a process that supposedly took quite a few years, which is why a lot of people are still waiting for their Coke and Pepsi counterparts in stainless steel to this day. But essentially, yeah, I love the aluminum bezel inserts. Now, the third difference is the bracelet. Now, this is something I definitely have to give to the modern counterparts. The new Rolex bracelet, apart from the polished center links, is just a lot heftier. I mean, the older ones you can get with solid end links as well as non-solid, and the center links, they also came in variants of both solid and non-solid, but the bracelet never quite felt the same or as hefty as the modern iteration, especially the clasp. The old Rolex stamped clasp was always the worst part of that watch, in my humble opinion, which is why to this day I wear my pre-ceramic Submariner on a NATO because, and I don't mean to be harsh here, I think it's probably one of the worst clasps for a watch in that price range of all time. However, Rolex did come out with the new Rolex Easy Link and the Glide Lock clasp for the Submariners, and that easily is one of the best clasps in the watch industry. So they went from worst to best, and as I said, I think the new Bracelet is leaps and bounds in a different league compared to the old one, so it isn't all bad. I'm not completely biased. And then the other thing I've got to mention here is price. Now, a new BLNR, or Batman GMT Master, is pretty hot right now. And even on the used or pre-owned market, it's trading pretty close to full retail. So we're talking $8,000 plus. Now, Pepsi bezels have been skyrocketing in value. Now, I mean, I bought one 3 years ago and I paid under $5,000. Today, good luck with that one, guys. You're probably looking in the $6,000 range, let alone the $4,000 range. But you still managed to save $2,000 over a modern BLNR. Now, I don't think price should be your main motivating factor, but $2,000 is still $2,000 in the long run, so I think it should absolutely be discussed. So those are, in my opinion, the main differences. Yes, there are more differences. The lume is different. They no longer use superluminova. Rolex is using new calibers with anti-magnetic silicone hairsprings. So, there's quite a few differences. However, the main ones in my head are the case, the bezel, the bracelet, and the price. Personally, Annie, I say go with what you love. And I always say that in every video. Go with what you love. The BLNR is going to be a more durable watch, but if you love the Pepsi, you love the Pepsi, and nothing is going to scratch that itch. Personally, I say Pepsi all day long. Now, I think the BLNR is probably a better watch altogether, but there's just something about the Pepsi bezel that speaks to me. And I think anybody who's buying a luxury watch isn't necessarily buying it for utility, they're buying it for a more romantic, emotional feeling that the watch invokes in them. So I say buy whatever speaks to you. Anyway, guys, shorter little episode today, but on a quick side note, if you haven't subscribed to our Talking Hands videos, that is Watch You Want watch reviews, to see Tim's fantastic hands-on reviews of watches, and a couple of pretty bad ones made by myself as well, go check it out. The link is in the description. And also, please check out our Instagram. That's @WatchYouWant. Link in the description as well, where I share some short little video clips and some cool photography taken right here in-house at the Watch You Want offices. Thank you so much, guys, and we'll catch you in the next one. Take care.